Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. I'm going to talk today about a country I haven't discussed before. In fact, in general, I'm going to try and do a few jurisdiction highlights on some parts of the world that you might be interested in that maybe are a little bit less common. And so over the next little bit, you should expect to see some of those. The country we're talking about today is Barbados, and specifically their digital nomad visa. So they were one of the first to roll this out at the start of the summer of 2020. And really were quite successful. They got a lot of news from the process. They had quite a number of people there. If you go to there's a Facebook group now specifically devoted to digital nomads in Barbados. It's got like almost 900 people in it. And this is coming from a country that really had no digital nomad presence prior to this. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the taxes work. I'm going to tell you about how the process works, what it costs, etc. It has some pros and some cons compared to some of the other programs, and so I'm excited to dive in with you. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the all notifications. I really appreciate your support. Please share it with your friends. We're trying to grow the channel, working hard to try and bring you great content. If you'd like help with the subjects we talk about here, which are international tax optimization, asset protection, forming companies, opening bank accounts, getting residencies and citizenships around the world, please reach out to me. You can book a call, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below, or send a message to our websites, offshorecitizen.net and offshorecapitalist.com. Okay. So, it's actually not called the Digital Nomad Visa, but the Barbados Digital Nomad Visa. I'm going to call them all that just because it's easier, gives you a sense for what it's all about. Is, as with, I've done highlights on some of the other countries such as Costa Rica, such as Malta, such as Estonia, etc. It is a 12-month residency permit, allows you to live there for 12 months, going in and out of the country. You don't have any concerns in that regard. And it is based for people who basically can support themselves, okay? So these things don't lead to citizenships or permanent residencies, etc. But hey, they can give you a great place to go and hang out for a while, experience a part of the world, check things out, etc. So how does it work? Okay, so to apply, you need to make a commitment that you will make $50,000 in the year, which is pretty high for a digital nomad visa. As far as I can think of, it's the highest one that I can remember. You don't actually have to prove it, though, in this case, which is a little bit interesting. Now, Barbados, for those who aren't familiar, is, if you look at the Caribbean, there is you've got Mexico and you've got the US up here, right? And then there's this chain of islands that kind of comes down, and then here's South America. So Barbados is down right towards the bottom level. That's where you get, Curacao and Aruba and Grenada and some of these down in that area. So that is where Barbados is. And it is one of the more affluent Caribbean islands. It was for a long time the de facto tax haven for Canadians. A bunch of reasons why that was. I think I mentioned it in some of my videos on international tax planning for Canadians. And was famous for having a pretty favorable tax system for companies. They had something called IBCs and RBCs, which was international business companies and resident business companies. Due to some of the kind of international pressure, they ended up combining that. And so now you can get still pretty favorable tax rates there between 1 and 5.5% on your company, something like that. So, pretty decent rates. This being said, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the digital nomad visa. I'll go and cover some of the benefits of Barbados because it actually is quite an interesting jurisdiction from those perspectives in a future video. What you might want to be aware of here is it costs $2,000 US. So the Barbadian dollar is pegged 2-to-1 to the US dollar. So they actually charge you 4,000 Barbadian dollars, which is 2,000 US dollars, or 6,000 for a family. However, you don't have to pay when you apply. Once you get approved, you have 28 days to apply before you lose out. In theory, they say that they should get back to you within 5 business days with an approval or denial. This being said, in practice, it can take a little bit longer than that. So, but it's quite a fast process. What happens is you go there, when you arrive, you have to present that you have insurance for the year, right? So I'm going to do a video on different travel and health insurance options globally in the future, and you can check that out. But this is one key option for you. So you're going to need to have that. Fair enough. Then to activate the visa, you have to leave the country, then go back. So that's something that's worth noting. it's worth considering that it is one of the more expensive places in the Caribbean in general, but loosely speaking, like it's not a cheap place. It's not like if you go to Croatia or something like that, the cost of living is pretty low. Barbados, it's really not that low. It's not super high, but you should expect similar cost of living as, say, Barcelona, something like that. What about taxes? So like most of these programs, you don't get taxed if you're there for a year on any non-local income. So the income you earn locally would be taxed, but you're not allowed to earn income locally under the visa, so you're all good, okay? So again, nice, if you just consider this, you could leave your home country, you could go to Costa Rica, then you could go to Croatia, then you can go to Barbados. You could be bouncing around from one place to another, not paying taxes, living in each of these different countries for a year, which is pretty cool, right? Pretty interesting opportunity. I don't know if I mentioned, maybe I missed, to include family members, it's an extra $1,000. So for a family, the cost, instead of being $2,000, is $3,000. Not too bad. And that's pretty much the story. You are flexible to go and live there. It's worth understanding that the infrastructure on any of these islands can have some intermittency to it. So to give you some idea, you should probably expect a power outage like maybe once a month that could last a few hours. I know I lived in Costa Rica for 3 winters. This was a number of years back, and infrastructure's improved since then. But that was one thing that bothered me as somebody who was working remotely, online, etc., was you could have a call scheduled and then power goes out and you're like, oh shit, this doesn't look very professional. So anyway, you have some of those things that can be a little bit of a downside. But this being said, it's infrequent enough that you shouldn't likely have an issue for the most part, especially if you're not somebody who's, having specifically scheduled calls. So it's for people who, like I said, are having the external income, but the unique thing here is, on the one hand, you have to make the declaration of the higher income, but on the other side, you don't have to prove it in the same way that you do in some of these other places. So yeah, it's very interesting. I think it's really cool for people to explore some of these different parts of the world that they wouldn't normally see. And the Caribbean's got, so many islands in it. There's so many different countries there. You can check out different lifestyles, etc. And as a result, see some parts of the world that you might not otherwise see, have some great water, some great beaches, etc. So I would encourage people to, again, whether you're going to do the digital nomad visa or not, go and check out these parts of the world if you get a chance. If you have questions, please put it in the comments below. Share with me your thoughts, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.